Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Brian. We are back and I am so excited for today's video. Today we are looking at the newly released 2021 King of Kentucky. If you know anything about me, you know that one of my favorite pours I've ever had is the King of Kentucky, namely the barrels from 2019. However, since it came out in 2018, the product has been phenomenal. Now, what I'm going to do in this video is I am going to talk about the 2021 and make some comparisons to my interactions with years past. But it has to be said that this is a single barrel product, so it's hard for me to describe this and give general assumptions about all barrels that came out of the 2018, the 2019, the 2020, and this 2021 release. We are sipping barrel 7, and it comes in at 125.8 proof. And man, the color on this is the first thing that I noticed because it's got this reddish, deep copper hue. And I don't know if you can tell the legs on this glass or not, but I could just sit here and stare at it and they are not moving. It is clinging to the glass like there's no tomorrow. Wow. The nose is cigar box. It's got this fresh cedar note. You've got a raspberry note. You've got this deep brown sugar note to it. And the thing that I notice, I feel like the most on the nose is it just doesn't have the heat or the barrel char / smoke intensity that I seem to notice in past years. Past years seem to have this sort of heavy char meets chocolate note on it that gives a lot of darker tones to it. And while I really enjoy that about the pour, it's very welcomed in the nose to be softer than in years past. Let's go ahead and go right into the palate on this one. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is so desserty and sweet and rich and chewy. I can't even describe in words the experience that you get when you first take a sip of this. It simultaneously has this like exhilarating rush, but also it completely coats the palate as if it's preparing you for what you're about to drink. And then the flavors hit. You have these luscious leather oak notes. It's raspberry, it's fig, it's peach cobbler. It's laden with this sweet brown sugar, gobs of brown sugar, almost as, makes me think, did I accidentally pour George T Stagg here? You get that fresh cedar note come back, and it's got this deep, balanced, sugary oak. And again, like I mentioned on the nose, what I noticed the most on the palate is the absence of the heavier char influence here and the chocolate notes. And instead, you get perfectly balanced spice. And I never say this about a pour, but this has so many good flavors. I would say if you were to talk about the spice in terms of percentages, the spice is at like a 15 to 20%. Again, I never say this. I almost think you could have the spice turn up a little bit more and it might add a little bit more complexity to it. That linger. It doesn't stop. Gosh. I'm gonna be tasting this for hours. This is amazing. Trying to sum up, like I mentioned before, it's hard to give generalizations, but I tried several barrels of 18 and I thought that the heat was very intense and they came with a lot of that barrel char, kind of smoke, kind of intense, attacking heat on those barrels initially, but they still had some good flavor. I tried probably half the barrels that released in 2019. And if I were to generalize, I would say those are the more antique-like, dusty, easy, rustic, more days of old type of whiskey. It is a year that I was very fond of. Then we moved to 2020, and I tried a couple of barrels in 2020, and the best comparison that I have of barrels from 2019 to 2020 would be equivalent to older Wild Turkey to modern Wild Turkey. You have some similar pockets of flavor, but they approach themselves differently. And there's something about the 2020 that just tasted more modern. I felt like it wasn't quite as complex, and the flavors were slightly more rolled off. It was, if you think about music, it was as if the notes had a nice equalizer put on there, and everything was just really fine-tuned. But what I loved so much about the 19 is it was just easy and had these older flavors, and it just felt like a whiskey that you don't get in 2019. What we get in the 2021 is a pour that doesn't have the kind of smoke char that you get in any of the years past to the same degree, at least in the barrel that I'm trying. And you get this heavy brown sugar sweetness that makes you think more along the lines of George T Stagg and less of the lines of what we've come to know so far from King of Kentucky. The pour that strangely this seems to remind me the most of would be Michter's 20 year. When I remember trying Michter's 20 year, there was this herbal, cedary, evergreen type note to it. And I feel like the cedar note that's in here is slightly similar to that. I think that I was surprised at how sweet and balanced the Michter's 20 was for being 20 years old. Now, while the oak might not be as intense or as musty or deep as the Michter's 20, the fact that it comes off so sugary and sweet, but balanced with the old oak flavors, the fact that it is slightly off profile from 18, 19, and 20 King in that way, I think that's what makes me think it's really similar to the Michter's 20. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is no doubt so far my favorite pour that I've had this year. And it's an incredible King of Kentucky. I feel like 19 was I'm so fond of 19 because it has those dustier flavors. And this has it to an extent, but not quite as antique-y. But where I would say the 19, I just wish the chocolate and the char was toned down a little bit. I have no negative things to say about this. This is what I would consider an absolutely perfect bourbon. The only thing that I wish, or I wonder, is if it would get a little bit more complexity if the spice was turned up. Now, I was able to come to this pour without any opener, and it does not present heat at all. It drinks as if it's 105 proof. It's so easy to drink, but yet has so much depth and layers to it. This is outstanding. And my hope is that as it opens up, maybe more of that spice will come out. Or if I were to set myself up with other pours, then more of that spice will come out. Guys, I hope that was helpful to see what people might be able to expect in the 2021 King of Kentucky compared to the years past. I know this might not be a pour that's accessible to a whole lot of people, but it's one that is near and dear to me. And so I'm glad to have it documented here on the channel. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate you tuning in to the content as always. Please leave a message down below. Let me know if you've tried this year's King of Kentucky, if you've had past years of King of Kentucky, and what you have experienced from that. If you want more content, please subscribe to the Entry Proof Podcast. That's a podcast that I do with Drew P. Whiskey. We're generally over on his channels live on Thursday nights doing live streams. If you want to support the show here, Drew P. Whiskey, and the content that we're creating, subscribe to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/entryproofpodcast. It's a good way to be able to make sure that more content is coming to you guys. Thanks again, as always, everyone. Until next time, we'll see you later.